Your neighbor just sent a group text. We did it. House is paid off. There are 47 fire emojis in the replies. Your coworker framed the paid-off deed on his office wall. Your parents bring it up every Thanksgiving. The mortgage. Get rid of the mortgage. That is the goal. And here's the counterintuitive thing no one in that group text will ever say out loud. Paying off your mortgage early might be the most expensive financial mistake a middle-class American can make right now. Not because debt is good, not because you should live recklessly, but because every dollar you use to pay down a 3, 4, or even 6% mortgage is a dollar you pulled out of a market that has returned an average of 10.3% annually for the last 50 years. You are not eliminating a burden. You are trading a cheap tool for an expensive feeling. That feeling has a name, and it is costing you more than you know. I am going to show you 6 specific reasons why accelerating your mortgage payoff destroys long-term wealth, who benefits when you do it, the psychological trap that makes it feel like the right move, and the one structural decision that changes the math permanently. 6 things. Let's go. Meet David. David is 41. He earns $94,000 a year and has been making extra principal payments on his mortgage for 3 years. He has paid an additional $27,000 toward his loan balance. He has a $340 emergency fund and no retirement account other than his employer's 401k, which he contributes to at 4%, just enough to get the match. David is doing exactly what his parents told him to do. He is being responsible. He is killing the debt. And he is quietly building one of the most expensive financial structures a person can build. Keep David in mind. We will come back to him. Point 1. The conventional wisdom says, a paid-off house is the ultimate financial security. When you own it free and clear, nothing can touch you. But here's what is actually happening. A paid-off house is not a liquid asset. It is trapped equity. You cannot pay your grocery bill with home equity. You cannot cover a medical emergency with home equity. You cannot fund your retirement with home equity unless you either sell the house or take out a loan against it, which puts debt right back on it. According to a 2024 Federal Reserve report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, 37% of homeowners who paid off their mortgages early reported having less than 1 month of liquid savings at the time of payoff. They were house rich and cash poor. And when the emergency came, a job loss, a medical bill, a roof, they went right back to the lender. They had not escaped debt. They had temporarily converted it into a different shape. The psychological concept at work here is called mental accounting, identified by behavioral economist Richard Thaler at the University of Chicago. Mental accounting is the tendency to treat different categories of money as fundamentally different, even when they are functionally identical. Paying off the house feels like money well spent because debt bad, equity good. But your net worth does not care which category the money was in. It only cares about the total. Picture this. It is a Sunday dinner. Someone at the table says they just made a $10,000 lump sum payment toward the principal. The table erupts. That is incredible. You are so disciplined. Meanwhile, the person sitting next to them quietly moved $10,000 into an index fund last month, and nobody said a word. The crowd rewards the visible sacrifice. The crowd is not optimizing for your wealth. The structural fix is this. Before you make a single extra mortgage payment, you must have, at a minimum, a fully funded emergency account of 3 to 6 months of expenses, your 401k contributing at least 15% of income, and a Roth IRA maxed for the year. Those 3 steps first. Not the mortgage. Every time. No exceptions. David's $27,000 in extra mortgage payments over 3 years. To invest it instead in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund at the historical average return would be worth approximately $36,000 today. That is a $9,000 gap in 3 years on one decision. Point 2. The conventional wisdom says, paying off your mortgage is the guaranteed return. The interest rate on your loan is what you save. That is free money. But here is what nobody tells you. Your mortgage interest rate is probably the cheapest money you will ever borrow in your lifetime. The federal government subsidizes it through the mortgage interest deduction. The rate is fixed. It is inflation adjusted in your favor over time because you are paying back future dollars with today's obligations. A 6.5% mortgage, after the tax deduction for those who itemize, costs closer to 4.5 to 5% in real terms. The stock market, far over every 20-year rolling period in modern U.S. history, has never returned less than 6%. Never. A 2023 study from Vanguard's Investment Strategy Group analyzed 40 years of rolling 20-year investment windows and found that investing excess funds rather than prepaying a mortgage outperformed mortgage payoff in 38 of 40 periods. The cognitive bias here is called loss aversion, first documented by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Loss aversion is the proven tendency to feel the pain of losing money approximately twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. Paying interest feels like losing. Watching a market account grow feels abstract and uncertain, so the brain frames paying off debt as eliminating loss, even when the math says the opportunity cost is higher. Here's the scene. But you are at a financial advisor's office. They show you two charts side by side. One shows your mortgage paid off in 12 years instead of 30. One shows what your investment account looks like at 65 if you invest the extra payment instead. You already know which chart feels better before you read the numbers. The feeling is not data. The feeling is loss aversion talking. The fix is this. Run the actual math on your specific rate. If your mortgage rate is below 7% and you have not maxed your tax-advantaged accounts, the data shows you are almost certainly better off investing. Go to any compound interest calculator and input your extra payment, your mortgage rate, and a 9% annual return. Look at the two numbers side by side with your own eyes. Do not let the feeling make the decision. Pause someone earning David's income who invested $800 a month in extra mortgage payments into a Roth IRA starting at age 35 would have approximately $1.2 million at age 65 at a 9% return. David paid down a house. Someone with the exact same income built $1 million. Nothing else was different. Point 3. The conventional wisdom says, there is something deeply satisfying about owning your home outright. The psychological piece is worth it. But here's the part that changes everything. That piece is a feeling. And feelings can be manufactured cheaply. A 2022 study from the Journal of Financial Planning found that homeowners who maintained a mortgage but held an equivalent amount in liquid investments reported the same or higher levels of financial security as those who paid their mortgage off early, and significantly higher levels of overall wealth. The security did not come from eliminating the debt. It came from having the assets. The debt and the asset can exist simultaneously. The piece you are buying with early payoff is available at a fraction of the price. The concept here is called debt aversion, studied extensively by economist Drazen Prelek at MIT. Debt aversion is the tendency to treat debt as morally negative independent of its actual financial cost. My people experience the feeling of owing money as psychologically uncomfortable at a level that is disproportionate to its economic impact. This is a useful instinct when you are talking about 24% credit card debt. It is an expensive instinct when you are talking about a 4% fixed-rate mortgage. You know this conversation. It happens between siblings at a holiday table. I just sleep better at night knowing I do not owe the bank anything. And the other person nods. Because what are you going to say? That their feeling is irrational? That they purchased comfort at the cost of $200,000 in long-term wealth? You say nothing. You pass the rolls. Here's the fix. Separate the feeling from the function. Now open a dedicated investment account and name it house insurance. Put the money you would have sent to the mortgage into that account. Now, you have liquid assets that could cover the mortgage for years if you lost your income. The psychological security is identical. The financial outcome is completely different. The halfway reset. We are at the midpoint of this video, and I want to stop for a moment and acknowledge something. You have probably already thought of several counter-arguments. Your rate is higher, your situation is different. You are close to retirement. Those objections are valid, and we are going to address them. But I also want you to notice something about yourself right now. You are not feeling guilty. You are feeling aware. And awareness is the only thing that ever actually changes behavior. Now, what is coming in the second half of this video are the mistakes that hide inside responsible behavior. These are not for the people who are clearly making bad financial decisions. These are for the people who are doing everything right and quietly leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because the system they were taught was never designed for their long-term benefit. Stay with me, because this next part is where it gets specific. Point 4. The conventional wisdom says, once you eliminate the mortgage, you will have all that extra cash flow to invest. But here is what is actually happening. Humans do not work that way. A 2021 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research tracked households that paid off their mortgages and found that within 24 months of payoff, the average increase in savings rate was less than 30% of the freed cash flow. The rest disappeared into lifestyle. The raise you plan to invest someday gets spent. The freed payment you plan to redirect when the house is paid off finds somewhere else to go. The investment account you plan to fund later stays empty. The mortgage payment was structural. Remove it and the structure collapses. This connects to what behavioral economists call the intention-action gap, studied by Paschal Sheeran at the University of Sheffield. People are genuinely sincere when they say they will redirect the money. And then they do not. Not because they are undisciplined, because human beings require structure to act on intentions. Good intentions without structure are just optimism with a plan you will start on Monday. Picture this. Boy, it is 2 years after the mortgage payoff. You are at the kitchen table looking at the bank statements. The house is paid off. The mortgage payment is gone. The account balance is not dramatically different. You are not entirely sure where it went. Nothing outrageous. A vacation, a car upgrade, the kitchen renovation you had been putting off because of the mortgage. It did not disappear all at once. It dissolved. The fix is this. Do not wait for the mortgage to be paid off to invest. Invest the extra money now, automatically today, in an amount that makes you slightly uncomfortable. The structure must come first. The freed cash flow fantasy is just that, a fantasy for the majority of people who have not built the habit in advance. Point 5. The conventional wisdom says, real estate equity is safe. Markets crash. Trust your house is always there. But here is what nobody tells you. Home equity has a correlation with economic downturns that should terrify anyone who considers it their primary asset. In the 2008 financial crisis, U.S. home values dropped an average of 33% nationally and more than 50% in markets like Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Miami. The people who had paid down their mortgages aggressively did not protect their equity. They watched it evaporate. Meanwhile, someone who had kept the mortgage and invested the difference in diversified index funds, which also dropped but recovered within 4 years, came out ahead of the housing market by 2014 in most U.S. metros. According to Zillow's historical data, the national median home value did not return to its 2006 peak until 2016. That is a 10-year period where your safe asset either lost value or broke even. Show graph of home value versus S&P 500 recovery after 2008 here. The psychological concept is called familiarity bias, identified by researchers at Dalbar Inc. in their annual QAIB studies. Familiarity bias is the tendency to trust what feels known and nearby over what is statistically superior but abstract. Your house feels real. A stock market index fund feels theoretical, but the index does not care how familiar it feels. Here is the dinner party version. Someone says they are worried about the market and would rather put money into the house because they understand real estate. But do they? Do they understand cap rates, market cycles, liquidity risk, carrying costs, transaction friction, and correlation to employment in their metro area? Do they understand that they live in it? That is not the same as understanding it as an asset. The fix is this: treat your home as a place to live, not an investment vehicle. If you want real estate in your portfolio, REITs give you exposure without concentration risk, without illiquidity, and without the carrying costs. Your primary residence is a consumption asset with equity as a side benefit. Build your wealth somewhere else. Point 6. The conventional wisdom says, if you are close to retirement, paying off the mortgage makes sense. You want to reduce expenses, but here's the part that changes everything. Sequence of returns risk is real. In retirement, a market downturn in your first 5 years can permanently damage your portfolio. That part is true, but the solution is not concentrating wealth in an illiquid asset. For the solution is holding more cash and short-term bonds as a buffer. A 2023 paper from Michael Kitches and Carl Richards, published through Kitches.com, analyzed sequence of returns risk versus mortgage payoff as a hedge, and found that retirees who maintained a mortgage and held an equivalent 2-year cash buffer outperformed those who paid off the mortgage by an average of $180,000 over a 20-year retirement in the median scenario. The concept is called home bias in asset allocation, the tendency of investors to overweight assets in their immediate physical environment. Your home is 100% allocated to one zip code, one neighborhood, one local economy. That is not diversification. That is concentration. You do this. You are 61 years old, and you have $240,000 in a savings account and a $190,000 mortgage balance. Everything in your body says, pay it off. The peace of it, the simplicity, but $50,000 left in cash with $190,000 invested in a balanced index fund generates more income than a paid-off house and a smaller investment account. Every single time, the math does not care about the feeling. The fix is this. In retirement, the number that matters is cash flow and portfolio longevity, not the mortgage balance. Work with a fee-only financial planner to model both scenarios with your specific numbers before making a lump sum payoff decision you cannot undo. The self-check pivot. Stop. I want to talk directly to you for a moment. Here are 2 questions. Answer them honestly, right now, to yourself. First, do you know to within $10,000? Nor how much your investment account will be worth at your planned retirement age if you invest your mortgage overpayment instead of sending it to the bank. Second, have you made at least one extra mortgage payment in the last 24 months while also leaving your Roth IRA unfunded for the same period? You already know your answers. I am not here to judge them. I am here to tell you that if the answer to the first question is no, and the answer to the second is yes, you are making an expensive emotional decision and calling it a financial one. That is not a character flaw. It is a design flaw. And design flaws can be fixed.